Everyone has found a seat. We have a first row still open. No takers? Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. A new meetup in Brussels this time. Quite some familiar faces and also some new people, which is always nice to see. Which means the community is growing, and that's exactly why we are doing these meetups, of course. So today we're at MobileGeneration, and today's meetup, normally there should have been 16 new members. I'm not sure if there are exactly 16 new members, but quite some people, which is indeed nice. And currently we're over 900 people on Meetup. And we're trying to reach 1,000 members by the end of the year, which I think might go well, or yeah, we'll see how it goes. But Chris started Flutter Belgium in 2018, and we're trying to create a community in Belgium about Flutter to share knowledge and bring people together and share some ideas or get inspired by the talks that people are giving. But actually we are not with the two people here currently. So Chris at the Livestream setup, and I will be doing some talking like I'm doing today or now. But then we also have Jens, and Jens booked his holiday this week. So it means that he's not here, of course, but he's watching the live stream as we speak, which is good. So next time he will be here. We have quite some social channels as well. We have, of course, a small website where you can find all our social links. But of course, the Slack channel is the most important one. A lot of people share some questions or ideas on the Slack channel, which is easy to find answers or to find other people who are interested in collaborating. Then, of course, the Meetup group, the LinkedIn page where we share our latest news, and then all the live streams we do, like this one, are hosted on YouTube, and they are also uploaded afterwards, so you can revisit them and share them or use them for an interview if you're looking for a new job, which is always nice. But of course, the meetups wouldn't be this if we didn't have speakers. So we always have some brave people who take the stage and talk about something they've learned or something they've been doing for the last few weeks or months. So if you have an interesting idea or an interesting topic that you've been working on, just reach out and then you can just take the stage. We have two formats. So we have a format where you can do a full talk of 30 to 40 minutes, and then we have lightning talks, which we'll have 4 of today, which is quite a lot. Lightning talks will actually just be a talk of 5 minutes, sort of. But it's just for you to learn and to take the stage and see how it goes. And if you feel confident, just take the stage for half an hour or 45 minutes. And we think that everyone has something interesting to say. So maybe the best motivator to become a speaker is to receive our sticker. Everyone who speaks or does a full talk of 45 minutes will receive a sticker that says you did it, because indeed you just stood here for 45 minutes, which is quite a long time. And I've been speaking for 45 minutes already, I think. So let's speed it up. So we're always looking for hosts as well. It's fairly simple. It's just providing a location and some food and drinks, like MobileGeneration is doing today. So thanks a lot for that. We are always looking for new locations. So if you have one, you can always reach out. And then today we have 4 lightning talks. Quite some things today about AI, which is not surprising, I think, with the latest, or not the latest, but all the developments in that space as well. And then we have not a new format, but we're trying to continue the widget of the meetup lightning talk, which is just a small section of a specific widget where we learn something about a widget that we didn't know before or is not used that often. So that's interesting. And then we have two larger talks, two main talks about vibe coding in Flutter and the lessons learned of how MobileGeneration is doing it. And then Frey, who is a speaker who has been speaking here for quite some time, will go to the United States as well, to FlutterCon, and he will be giving his talk today in a preview, I would say. So that's quite nice. And then I've seen some discussions on Flutterflow on the Slack group, and today there's also someone here who is using Flutterflow, so I'm open to discuss it afterwards and maybe have a starting point on what it does, how it works, how does it work for you, or what are the bottlenecks or the good advantages of using Flutterflow. So at every meetup we also do a raffle, so you can scan a QR code, which we will be using to raffle our our t-shirts. That's my t-shirt. And a dash, and then some hats and some stickers. So if you want to win one of these, you can always join the raffle. It's also the QR code on the banners, so you can always scan that afterwards. And then I want to end with, again, thanking MobileGeneration for providing the location and the food. So very, very nice of hosting. And then the next meetup will be at ICAPS at the 8th of October. So we will take summer break because we think that we should automate some stuff to make the meetup a little bit more manageable, because we're doing quite some manual tasks currently. So we will take the summer to automate some tasks and focus on that on the summer. So without further ado, I think we can start with the lightning talks. So if you want to start, that's I was looking for you, I couldn't find you.
So, hey everyone, my name is Dima. Just interesting question. Can you up your hands if you don't know about Cursor, anything? Okay, interesting. So, I also didn't know it before I met Romain. If you know, you know, it's the guy who are developing Codica. So he was like a marketing manager for first time when I have seen him, because he really recommended me Cursor. I was like, come on, why do you need Cursor if I have VS Code? So, but then I installed once, and I found that Cursor is absolutely the same as VS Code. So, but there are like two differences, that VS Code can give a hint, maybe, but Cursor definitely explain you everything if you need help with some task and find some issue. But how does it work? Actually, it works easily. The Cursor just has inside IDE like ChatGPT and not DeepSeek but Cloud and others AI who helps you with the project, with the code. So how does it work? I like using Cursor most because they looking in your code, they're looking in your architecture, they're helping you looking at how you implemented it before. So, but first advice when you install Cursor is to set your like rules. I don't know, does someone of you who are using Cursor are set it up? But yeah, I would just show you why do we need it. because so we can see here rules. So rules, it's in general, you can set up your rules for your project in general. For example, I put that I'm always using block as a state management. So if you implement something, please use block automatically without using some set state and so on, without adding some comments. If you know that's like AI usually like add some comments. So if you are speaking Chinese and for you is like easier to speak Chinese, just add that. Please answer every time in Chinese because cursor automatically answer you in English, even if you ask you like in other language. So that's like I just use some open space rules to do not waste time. I just put Reddit useful rules for Flutter. But also what I did is I'm setting project rules. So this means if you're using some like separate packages for your project, or you are doing some other way, for example, you're using not DDD architecture, but using some first feature or whatever it is, you can just edit here. And yeah, that's the first point, what you should invest your time, because it will save you some time, because every time I ask, no, you are not doing it this way, you should do it another way, I'm using this one, please check one more time. It's always wasting your time. So, and I just found 3 like most common comments what I'm using. Is like, please refactor this widget. explain this layout, because usually I'm working on the like products which written by some others, and sometimes something is complicated, and sometimes I'm not sure is it working in this way, so I ask it like AI to explain and make responsible. So to adapt AI for the same AI as you're using. For example, in my application, I had a case that I didn't want to put the task for UX UI designer because it's going to take more time. And I asked like, can you implement some feature with using the same UI what I'm using in this project? And it did great. Actually, I like it. Yeah, I'm a bit struggling because I was on a conference, React Native conference, and I was super surprised when I seen that some of the speaker who was on the React Native also used like React Native and Cursor. I was like, come on. And he did really interesting things. So he asked Cursor to write the feature, then to test this feature and fix the issues. And it was like 25 requests, like, oh, I found the issue here, so I'm fixing it, or oh, I fix it. It looks like it's still you still have some issue here, and it was like super long, but this was so funny. So, but probably, yeah, I'm using it just to convert something to optimize, as William told in the LinkedIn post. It's like only 20% for him to like only helps only for 20% in the coding. For me, maybe it's 35, but in any case. So what I don't like in Cursor, that's even if you have rules, you still have to be really careful with what Cursor are implementing, because the code quality sometimes really shit. So I'm closing the window oftenly and reject all the edits what Cursor open. So you should be really careful and should really check what he wrote you, because it can look like it's working, but in the same way it can break some others, and you you should test it after this really careful. So and architecture. So sometimes even if you like ask to do some using some principles, to not use it and create some folders which make your life a bit harder. So be careful. What I would say that it's still, you need to use humanity. Vibe coding is not the way we should move it. I like vibe coding. Why? Because when people create something using vibe coding, they always, like in some way, when they raise some money or get some money, they come back to developers, because their stay on some point where they cannot fix something, use it web coding, and they should hire someone even if you don't want. So the developers still getting money even from vibe coders. Yeah, what I'm gonna show you just a few examples. I prepared like how I did. So for example, here we have a like repeatable code, and I just Control A, Command I. So open its window. So I'm just like, can you refactor it? And don't forget to add, please. Okay. Okay, and that's how it works. So I make rules for all projects what I have, and what it did. So it just using block, first, and other thing to implement to refactor this code, and that's really bad because I don't need it. Just did it like only once. But it doesn't matter. You can see how it works. So you can just ask something to do, and then accept it or reject. There are like 3 ways to use it. So agent, ask, or manual. So agent, when you use agent, you automatically give possibility to make some changes, as you see here. If you are using ask, it means that you ask advice. So can you check how I can implement feature? They look at the code and they give you advice. At the manual, so they can offer you to do some changes, but they will not do it like automatically like agent. They will just offer. So yeah, I would probably try again, but I think it's gonna take more time than I expected. So yeah, that's, I'm gonna finish with it, I think, because 5 minutes is left, I think. So yeah, and for those, that's me, my LinkedIn, my photo. Leave LinkedIn. I didn't. Sorry, I'm a bit worried. It's my first time, so it's like. Thank you. Yeah, that's all.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, let's allow it. Hi everyone. I'm gonna give a fast lightning talk about how you can use Dart to write a local MCP server. Maybe where do we start? The tool integration problem, as if you have large language models or things like your cursor or windsurf, you had the tool integration, but everything has its own interface. So you just create a big mess because you just have M hosts and N tools. So it escalates very quickly, causing you to not be able to switch, for example, to another large language model because you do not have everything available. So it blocks you. That's where the MCP comes into play. What is it? It's just a protocol where we have one single standard where you can interact with your large language models to add extra tooling to it. Access data, go do some API calls, fetch some data from somewhere. And because you have a single interface, it's like having your USB-C port. You can create an M+N problem. You have a unified API, and then every tool you integrate with, for example, the Slack API, it all goes through the protocol, and you only need to integrate you only need to support the MCP as a host, and as a tool provider, you only need to provide an MCP server once. So, as in the Dart style, write once, run anywhere. What does it look like? You have the host being your large language model, Claude desktop, your IDE like Cursor or Windsurf. which communicates to an MCP server using the protocol, and that can then access your data source or a remote service. And behind the scenes, it just uses JSON RPC, just requests, responses, and some notifications. And you have two possibilities. You have one for your local integrations, which is called STDIO, so the standard input-output. And you have the one for the remote integrations, which currently the standard is streamable HTTP and possibility to have server-sent events. With your local integrations, it's for having command line tools, some shell scripts, accessing a local database, simple processes. And the remote one, for example, integrating with the Slack API. How do you write the local MCP server? It's very nice. You create a console application, you add a few simple dependencies. I chose to use the Dart MCP package, which is the one from Dart themselves. It's still experimental. That only supports the STDIO. You have also the MCP Dart, which supports both. You can just easily check at the Dart MCP example project, which is quite basic, how you need to implement it. You write some code, you compile the code, which makes it a bit faster. And then you add the configuration to your host, to your large language model. Let's have a quick look on what that looks like if you need to write the code. Make it big. Is it readable? Okay. So quite simple. I have one public method, start server, which creates a stream channel with some close guarantee with the STD in and STD out as your streams. Some transformers just to support your encoding, have the line splitter and everything like that. And then you pass that channel to your MCP server. This is just a custom class which extends the MCP server from Dart MCP. And you can add support for 3 different things: resources, prompts, and toolings, which is what the MCP protocol is made for. And it's just a mix-in to provide you with the methods you need. Your server, you just give it a name, so it's recognizable, a version, and some instructions what the meaning of your MCP server is, what's the actual goal that it should do, so that the large language model knows what it needs to do. Then you have an initialize method where you then can just register your tools. That's the only thing I do here. It's register 3 different tools I created so they can be accessed. The tool themselves, also just a name, a description, what does it need to do. You can add an input scheme, what parameters do I need as an input. And then you have your handler, which just takes in the request. In this case, I just run a shell script. It's the Dart version, get the Dart version. It just runs Dart min version. Quite easy. You give a return. It's possible to have an error. So if it's an error, tell it that the call to result is an error, else just say it's okay. 2 other tools, Dart install pod, which is just with Dart, and then the last one is create a plan2ML scheme for my current project. In this example, it's just hard-coded. It's just a hard-coded string, but that's just writes a file to a temporary directory and returns the file path. You then just compile this with the Dart compile exe, and you can run it. Then in your tooling, I'm using Windsurf here, but it also works with the other ones, which supports the MCP protocol. I'll close this. Which is just the name of my server, the command it needs to run, which is it's just located. The executable is just located somewhere. It's not disabled. You can disable some certain tools if you need to have arguments. You can also run it just with the Dart command, but then it needs to compile it every time. And then if you run it, so for example, I'll use the light version. What is my current Dart version, and it's install pod. Then the large language model, here you see it calls the tool. I'll make it a bit bigger. So you see it called the Dart version and the Dart install pad. And I now get my Dart version, and the install pad also returns the file and gives some extra information that I'm using FVM to manage my installation file. If I say create me a plant.yml scheme my project, it will call the other tool. It will know it needs to do that if it works. Here you see it passed in a parameter, which was defined in the object scheme, in the input scheme I gave it, where it knows that the project directory is my project directory, and then just returns the plant.yml diagram. That's, you didn't return me the file, but it's just here. So it wrote the file somewhere. Then you can view the plant.yml scheme with some extension, which has nothing to do with this. But it's actually quite easy just to set it up. So it can enhance your coding with things like Mason and having plant.yml or some other scheme generator which does static code analysis. That's about it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happens if you try to? Will it always try to access one of the tools that
No.
is available?
No,
Or
it
will
just.
also say if there's no tool available that it.
Just reasons that I need something, you ask something specific, so I now direct my questions that I know it will call the tool. But I have multiple tools normally installed. It hardly calls them, only if it needs it. So, for example, I also have one for a connection with the Postgres database. It will hardly ever access it, except if I say, oh, please let me know what the current data scheme is. So that makes it quite easy. Thanks.
Everything well with the sound? Yes. Okay. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Alex, web and mobile developer from MobileGeneration. So we'd like to see many people here. We're kind of very happy that we got so many. We've kind of expected, to be honest, more, but it's still something, to be honest. I'm a mobile and web developer from MobileGeneration, as you can see here. And today I'm going to speak about a topic which we believe is quite important for design, and especially small startups that are just starting with design and are not professional designers and don't have anything in mind what design means, and pretty much has zero clue how to draw something in Flutter. So we're going to speak about this. So the main topic is going to be material tree design, which is the most futuristic approach and the easiest user interface design that you would like to extend your knowledge and how to make it much more unique and still good looking, even if you're an amateur. So starting by what is material tree design, I'm sure most of you are familiar, maybe looking here, right? I'm sure most of you are familiar with what it is and how to implement it. It's just the simplest design system integrated in Flutter, and it's giving you out of the box many features, included like field buttons, show snug bars, elevated buttons, many dialogues, whatever you think of, which is very necessary for Flutter. And if you'd like to integrate it in your code, it's very simple. So you just pretty much have all the needed designs that we're gonna dive already in our application. And you can just simply copy paste all of the code and it's gonna be already integrated within your system flow and way of working. So let's switch to the next slide. So this is like the base of the code that you would like to need in order to start ongoing with this. So basically, you know all the counter apps that are just starting within. So it's just nothing implemented already. And within your main.py file, you just gotta plug into this for your return function. So you just define it as a material app, and you can define both properties team and use material 3 set to true, which is going to immediately invoke the team and all the material design 3 applications that you will be easy to use. So especially when you don't have any budget, you won't need to hire a professional designer for you. You just have 3 lines of code and you're permanently done. So what does an average situation looks like when you're a small startup and have a client that needs a very professional design, but pretty much you don't have anything in common and you don't have zero knowledge about it? So usually a client comes in and says, I have a very good idea of a design, and I want to do this application that does this and does that. I want a magnificent design. And we, as a mobile generation company, we completely agree about it. But the most horrific problem that they say, but I don't understand anything about knowledge. I cannot hire you a designer of Figma, so you have to figure out yourself how to do the design. And at this point, we figure out that they don't have any money, which is like the main problem for us. But since we have the Material 3 design, we're going to resolve it immediately by looking up to this application. So apparently this hasn't been done by us, so it's nothing custom. This is like provided by the Flutter documentation, which all of you can find in here. So we see this is a web app, but this is also you can find it available both for Android, iOS, also web. So we will show it on web, how does it look like. And you can see all of the different widgets and different buttons, different tabs, chips, whatever you'd like to see and to use just to make your design look cool. Everything is around here. Just get it and plug it on in your code and you're completely done. So let's just show it on some code. So when I open here, so we see this is the exact documentation of Flutter. So it's also using the Material 3 design. So you can see everything around here is very futuristic, very unique look. So it's having all the components and all the widgets that are necessary for the design itself. We have every explanatory steps, how to start it, how to use it, whatever, you know, how documentation is looking like. We have the develop steps. We have it for Flutter, web. We see also the different styles. So pretty much this is the pure documentation of how we shall use it. And we're going to see also some latest release notes of how was this evolving, because it apparently started from Material 2. So this isn't the latest. This is the latest Material 3, but we've seen also the Material 2 before, which is kind of really old looking and not very probable for now. We can also change the design teams and we can see how everything is flowing. So it's kind of looking really cool. And we see the Material 3 app itself. This is the web application, which we see all the field buttons. We see the different icons. We can change the colors from here. And we really see how everything is looking much more futuristic, especially when we have zero knowledge about design. We can really gather something from there and just copy paste it, and it's immediately integrated into our code. So when let's say for example, if I'd like to change the color, you see how everything is like magically changing within just one click. So usually something that we've done when we especially meet up with our clients, we're just letting them decide what color would they like to use on their app. And later they choose, let's say, I would like to be pink, and we're just leaving it like that. But at the beginning, we're already just leaving all of these functionalities for them to decide. For example, I can also toggle the brightness. I can make it dark, white. We can also see the different colors being on secondary, being on how is it going to look when an arrow shows up. We can see the typography and all of the titles that are being displayed from largest to smallest. We would also see the elevation, which is like the shade of color itself, how dark from lightest to darkest. And when we switch to, when we go on components and we go on material 2, you can see how everything is changing, this is the old version of the code, so you can really see how everything looks much more digital and static, and it's really not great looking. It looks like it was made 2010. So yeah, we really hope Material 4 is going to be like really 3D and futuristic. So yeah, you know. So when we switch to Material 3, you can see how everything is much preferable. And let me just go here. When we open the code, so this is the source code of this web application. Let me just zoom it a bit like this. For example, if I'd like to see, let's say, some snack bar, let's say like this, I can see that it is currently being used here in this class. So this is called color box, so color box class. And if I immediately like something from here, it's really easy. So it's always like within a class defined where you can just pick it, copy paste, and it's immediately done. So if you really like some component and some widget, you just copy and paste it and you forget about everything else. For example, if I look for a chip like this, we see this color scheme view, which it has all the properties and everything that we've been needing to integrate it in our app. So it's just pretty easy because when you have zero knowledge design and you can't afford to, let's say, have a Figma license design and stuff like this, you just go on this, copy paste whatever you like, and it's immediately invoked into your code because, as you know, Flutter is quite flexible on this, and you can immediately start going very further without the need and the expense of a design, which is a very problematic thing, especially in the smaller startups. And which we believe is very important to use at early stages when you're a small startup and we're just starting, so you're just a team of developers. So yeah. And this was apparently the way how to integrate Flutter with Material 3 design, which is going to help you much with your presentations. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I maybe have one question.
Yeah.
When I used Material...
I'm going to regenerate the structure.
Sorry about that.
This tool here is different.
When I used Material 2, because Material updates quite a lot, and there are quite some changes over time, I find myself struggling migrating from a previous version to a newer version, and maybe even because the client is already used to the old style of the app, he doesn't always want to go to the next version, or it's maybe not always preferable. How do you handle MobileGeneration?
Apparently, we've been having like quite a lot of issues, especially with that, since many versions of, let's say, some buttons there, like floating action buttons, has been using previous versions from Material 2. And they've been using also deprecated properties, like opacities, like shade colors and shadows. So the apparent version was, we didn't came up to a like single integrated solution to this because it's kind of, there isn't like a single prompt command that you can run and immediately like re-update from 2 to 3. Mm-hmm. So in a such way, cursor is let's say, a probable idea to switch from 2 to 3. Just ask it, this is a deprecated property, I have it, let's say, on 50 places occurring in my file. Would you just change it from, let's say, opacity to alpha views and alpha shades, whatever it's called. And sometimes it's doing it, but sometimes it's doing a complete mess. So we're still trying to figure out how we do this. For now, we're just doing it manually. Whenever it occurs, we're just changing it with a new one, so it can re-evoke automatically. And so for us to be sure that it's actually changing from looking static to all of these shades and like fancy looking colors. But apparently we don't have like an integrated way. I believe it has to be integrated within a terminal command where you just simply type, let's say, some Flutter update all the design versions and whatever, so it can go immediately. But for now, we just change it all on all places manually because we gotta make sure we want it the way we are. So.
And how do clients handle the change in UI if there's a new version of material?
Yeah, for example, the main themes that we use, like the main components, is like the theme changing and the colors. So we just link it like in the settings tab bar, and we just let them switch themes from system default, dark and light, and like the different colors as you said. And for example, if they say, okay, I want my app to be completely only light theme using, and let's say pink color, we're just setting it just to be like this, and now afterwards. We are again going into the same situation of updating everything as the new updates are coming, since there isn't an integrated way to do it automatically. But yeah, that is how our way of following this pattern, and it has been working very well till now. So yeah, we're very satisfied by it.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have one lightning talk, so we have 4 today, which is quite a lot. So the main part starts a little bit later, but Chris will still do the widget of the meetup, which is link, I think. Yes. I will see. Otherwise.
All right, Flutter of the Meetup, not widget of the Meetup. A talk that we want to do every meetup, maybe discovering a widget that you did not use before. I think the first dependency you install mostly when doing a Flutter application from scratch is maybe installing the URL launcher. I guess that's not really new. I guess everybody use it for sending, for opening a website, for opening your email client, or even making a phone call or sending an SMS. It's all possible. So that's a really useful thing we always use. So you create a button and you call that function launch URL with a URL, and it does it for you. But now comes a bit of a problem that all works well until you go to web. Yeah? First thing you think, oh, everything works on web, cool, nice. But what does not happen, for example, if you do on your button on press and you do some kind of an await there, and then you want to open, then the browser says, oh, you're opening a pop-up. No, I'm not going to do it. So it doesn't work always. And also the browser semantics is not always correct. So there we have the link widget. Here I added two links, looks the same, Google 1, Google 2. One is just within the old way that always works on mobile. And the second thing is actually the nicer approach. What is the advantage there is that your browser will see that it is actually a link. So what you hear, I did an inspect element here on that first one. So what you see here is, it says, it's a Flutter view. Yeah, doesn't say that much. Your browser does not know that this is a link. So that's not cool. What happens when you do inspect on the second one? So with the link, it says, oh, it's an A, So it's really a link, which is always nice. And what is the advantage there? You can even tap on it and open in a new tab. You just get your default context menu. So indeed, you can copy link. Also, even what most users sometimes do is press a link. It opens in a new tab, and you can read it later or something like that. Or, that just works with a link, and that's maybe a widget that you did not know, because I didn't know about it. That's it. So now you know. And it's part of the URL launcher also. So if you, it's.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our office. I promise I'll be quick so we can go back to the pizza and the drinks. I'm going to talk about our own experience with vibe coding with Flutter. And the point here is not to give you like straight rules or how you should do things. It's more about our own experience with it. So what went wrong, what went good. And if there's something you can pick here, I think it's a win. It's important to know that this technology is moving so fast. So whatever I present here, it might be relevant in a few months, but I think it's a good experience. So I'm going to just give a brief explanation about myself. So I've been a freelance mobile developer almost like 15 years now. I work in some big companies, some nice startups. Some of you here are my ex-colleagues. And my idea always been to kind of mix between startups and corporate world. I really wanted to have both experience. And when I started my own company, I wanted to apply the good things I pick up from this experience. What I saw good in corporate, what I saw good in startups. And when I created my own startup, I wanted to apply this experience, but only pick the good parts. So we had a new client recently, and he wanted us to build an MVP for him with Flutter. Right? It was to be mobile and web. And we decided that it is a good opportunity for us to experiment about building all this with vibe coding. As you know, it's a very hot topic right now. So we had this initial plan. We decided that we're going to use cursor like everyone else, right? We're going to have a very, very big system prompt. For those of you who don't know, system prompt is kind of the initial instruction you give to AI, like the first rules you need to follow. I'm not sure if you see that well, but it was quite big. Our idea was, okay, we know it can go crazy, so let's give him a lot of rules to follow. And we had a base architecture which is based on block, which we know block is good. We used it before. So our idea was we give the architecture, we give like a huge system prompt, and we use Cursor AI, and then we just talk, right? We avoid coding. We're just gonna prompt. We used, I think, Claude 3.7 at that point. That was the initial plan, right? So what went wrong very quickly? When we use Cursor AI, as we saw before, we can choose between ask or agent. When we use agent and we give him a big picture of what we want to do, it starts going crazy stuff. And what I noticed for myself is that it becomes very quickly very tempting to stop verifying, right? It starts throwing accept. And at the beginning we thought we're just going to read everything, we're going to verify everything, but very quickly it becomes overwhelming, right? It is throwing commands, it is creating code, classes, data classes, and at some point it becomes very tempting to say, okay, accept, and let's next prompt, right? This is the first thing I noticed, that it is dangerous to keep accepting, right? We become boring of reading this code. We all know that sometimes reading code is more difficult than writing code, and in this scenario, it's constantly reading code fast, right? It just shooting code everywhere, and when we test, it kind of works, right? So you decide, well, I'm not going to read every time, I'm just going to test it. It works, fine, accept, next one. And even if we are developers ourselves, a lot of things start slipping in the code, and this is one of the craziest examples. In one of the screens for the app, we want the user to choose his language. So he built these language flags, and one of them was Spanish. I'm not sure if you can see it right, but what happened here that it has created a class that will draw only the coat of arms, so not even the flag, just the logo. And this was 500 and something lines, right? Nobody asked him to do that. Nobody asked you to make logos, so it was 500 lines just for this. Right? We're not even talking about the flag, right? This could be just a simple PNG. Yes?
Is it more performant than a simple PNG or no?
I doubt. I was just a bit shocked that it went to that extent, right? And this is one of the craziest examples. What we noticed very fast is that it loves adding code. It's not good at optimizing existing code. Every problem is solved by adding more and more code. Another thing I noticed that some issues I had to fix myself, it will revert them further on, right? If it wrote bike, for example, I will just erase that, it will put it back, right? So things become, even if we're making progress, and when you run the app, the happy flow was more or less there, I saw that things are getting out of hand, right? And we're already 1 month in. There was a lot of code generated, and I start feeling that things are going badly. And what I did, I decided to call an expert. So some of you might recognize him. He's here. I decided that, okay, we are developers, but I wouldn't say that we are Flutter experts, right? I know that we are more or less okay, we're aware of the framework, but I wouldn't go to the extent saying we are Flutter experts. And I decided to bring a Flutter expert. And his first task was to, okay, have a look of this mess, I would call it. And immediately he saw a lot of problems, right? It was obvious, and this was my kind of worries immediately, that we have to course correct now or it will be too late after, right? Because we keep adding more code, it will become unmaintainable, right? We're not striving for perfection, we're striving for maintainable software, right? No code is perfect, but when it's deployed, you have to be able to maintain it, right? That's more or less what we do after, and it's not maintainable, it's a problem. So Fred did a lot of good work for us. He did code review, he did a refactoring, he, I believe, erased a lot of code. I myself erased a lot of code, so things start to get better, which make me feel a bit more confident that, okay, it's not too late, right? So it was important for us to have this exercise more or less in the halfway, because further on it's too late, right? With too much code generated, we are approaching the deadline, and even if the client is unaware, I didn't find fair that, okay, it might work, but I know that it's not maintainable, right? If someone else picked it up, he will scream. So first step was that we had Frey on board, and even with 2 days of work, he made a huge impact on our code. That was already good. Then the second step I took was to try to isolate the generation of code, right? I'm going to show another example further on. But the idea is that don't give it the big picture. I'm not talking what I need to build in general. I'm only giving him instructions about something very isolated, unaware of what's going on. So I can isolate it and kind of supervise it only there, right? So in the cursor, I switch to only ask. I'll never go agent, I'll just ask, and I wouldn't go to accept anymore. Or I'll go to external tool like Claude, for example, the native app, and I'll ask there, and when I'm really happy there, I'm just going to copy paste. I try to avoid the integrated code generation directly in IDE. So from cursor back to Android Studio or IntelliJ, what I like. Personally, I'm not that big fan of cursor because I feel it's a bit abstracted, where I worked a lot with IntelliJ and I found full control there. I feel at home, and I feel that it's not that AI friendly yet. It will be, like all of them, but I feel more in control. Although cursor, it was, I think, designed to be, I would say, more abstract, right? Less configuration, just generate code and accept, right? And this is the thing that for, I would say, more or less, I consider myself an experienced developer. I didn't like that much. I felt that I'm not in control anymore. So at the end, we reverted to 70-30. So human versus code generation, right? So we approach some isolated use case where it's going to give us a lot of head start, but the majority was done by us. In the next slide, I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk a bit more about this isolation prompt approach. This is a sneak peek of conceptual app we're working on. We have a small GIF on the right. What this does is an idea where the whole application itself is just a canvas with an LLM. And the UI is dynamically generated on demand, which means what? There's no longer screens and menus navigation. I would ask it, I want to change my password, and there will be just a widget, change your password, right? I would ask it something else. It will dynamically show me UI only what I want right now. For this demo app, I use a lot of code generation, like 80% of code generation, but it worked much better. The approach was completely different. In this concept, we have more or less 4 steps, I would say. When the user speaks to the app, we have to transcript from voice to text. We have to send that to LLM. LLM give us a text back as a prompt, and we want to play back. It means that it speaks, right? So user speaks, the front end shows a widget, some text, and also speaks back to him. So I broke that to 4 different steps. We first transcript, then send to LLM, then LLM we go text to voice, and something needs to play. The OpenAI will give us an MP3 file. And I didn't prompt the big picture. I just started with something I just want to transcript, nothing more. Make a service that transcript, keep it in one class, it's a service. The service needs to output a text, right? If the user speaks hello, that service at the end, it just needs to output as a string hello, right? And it just lives there. It doesn't know what's going on around it. It has one job only. And I prompt this in cursor, in the Claude native app, like the Anthropic. And I only work on that, right? I'm not happy. I spend some time, and when things are done, copy paste in the code. In this case, I use IntelliJ. Same approach for the other services. We have a service that receives the text from the first one, and he needs to make a call to LLM. That's again closed by itself, And it just goes, in this case I use another platform which is just hosting open source. It's not OpenAI, but it's very similar. In this case, it receives the text from the first one, it makes API call to LLM, LLM goes back, it returns a text, same approach for text to voice. Now this needs to get the text as a string, and it needs to return MP3. So that's another service, another isolation. They all talk to each other and they just run one after another. And in the end, we have a final approach. And with this type of isolation approach, without sharing the big picture to the LLM, the results was much better. So here I was able to build this concept quite quickly, right? With this approach, for example, playing the MP3 file on iOS was, I don't know, some kind of exceptions or whatever, that the LLM was quite good to handle, right? It's just ask, I need to play MP3 on iOS with Flutter, and it will generate the code I need. I'll still verify, but it's easy to verify something has a single purpose. And I'll easily spot, okay, you're going too much. I don't need to care about, let's say, optimizing the byte stream. No. Basic, simple, done. In many cases, when I see long code, I would say even stupid things like it's impossible that you need so much code. And it will say, yeah, it's your right. And then it go to 5-6 lines, right? I would use my developer kind of judgment to say that's not possible. Even if I'm not familiar with, let's say, some part of it, I would see that's not possible. It's impossible. Flutter cannot play MP3 file with more than 5-6 lines. I'm sorry, but you're going to wait out of the way, and it will correct it, right? And with this approach, I saw a huge time saving, right? This isolated approach, I was able to build something quite quickly. This is from my part. It was a bit quick, but I think we are already a bit over time. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Just wondering, you say the UI is generated.
Yes.
What you use behind the scenes to build up the screens?
So the way it works is there is some kind of initial instruction to LLM defining tool calling, and it will be instructed of I create additional protocol between the LLM in JSON, knowing that the LLM will always return a JSON with the message. For example, it always gives you one line, for example, is please type your password, and then it will tell me what type of kind of widget I need to build in the screen. And in some cases, if all I need is to know that is change password, right? I don't need further than that. The app builds that widget, and then if you change the password, the app itself calls APIs, right? In some cases, the LLM might give you additional instructions. Let's say you need this type of functionality and some additional actions, right? But it's some kind of a protocol in between, right? And the LLM always returns JSON format with the message and what type of widget it could be. Maybe there's no widget, and then app picks it up from there, knows what to do. So it's a combination between the old way of doing things, API calls, REST API calls, change password is still calling the server, but there's no navigation anymore, right? The user gets what he needs on the spot based on whatever he needs. And he might say, I want to change my password, I want to change my language, and it's going to show you just languages to select. And when you switch, then LLM starts talking French or Dutch also. And again, in this type of approach, the code is working quite well. Yes?
What kind of issues you had with hallucinations?
So in this case, this is still proof of concept. It was not tested that much, but from time to time, I would see that it just returns wrong JSON, because I use like low-level LLM, like Llama 3.2, or like something like even below 70 billion parameters, because I feel it doesn't need more, right? I don't feel I need to call OpenAI or something big for that, right? So I'll start with something very basic, see how it behaves, and I'm happy with it, I'll stay there. I will not go for something huge that this is not that complicated, right? It just needs to return JSONs in some type, so it's not that complicated. But on the low-level models, I would see JSONs is wrong, not closed, or We built some functionality where it needs to fetch some devices, IoT devices, and if it doesn't find devices, it will just create himself, right? We will see this. Yeah, I think the more we go further, the more we start seeing hallucination. And then it's trial and error. We go to prompt, back to system prompt, give more examples, work on, I don't know. Usually we try to solve it with system prompt, is the easy way, right? We say, okay, if you find no devices, never return, or things like that, right?
Yeah.
We always try to correct on system prompt because it is the easiest way, right?
It makes super sense.
Yeah. But luckily, if we see too much issues, we bump up the model a little bit. We go to something with more parameters and things like that. I use a platform called Nebus because it has all of them open source, and they use the same SDK as OpenAI, which means that if one day we want to switch to OpenAI, I just need to change the base URL and the model name, and that's it.
Perfect.
So it's very, very easy to navigate.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes?
You said this is a proof of concept.
Yes?
If it's successful, where does it go?
Well, it depends. I think that we are service provider. We don't build products for ourselves. So this will go to clients and trying to see if they see this in their apps, and then we start integrating. This is how we see this. This could be an app from scratch. It could be integrated to existing product. But most companies, they start with experimentation. What they want to see this part of their app, see how it behaves. Especially big companies, they have some money to spend on proof of concept for AI, but they're not ready to go to production. But it needs to start from somewhere. So this is something that we're going to build further and further, and then see with our clients, promote it and see who is ready to test this, to try that. This is how I see the vision of apps. I believe AI will change, not only I will change everything. And then I've been a mobile developer for many years, and I think that this makes sense in a way that, it will not fit any case, but it might fit some cases, right? Things you just talk into your app and it's just going to show you what you need right now. Nothing more, nothing further. I work on apps with endless menus and navigations, and people just don't know what to do. They abandon, they cannot find it in a few seconds. They abandon the app, right? The more the app grows, it's more challenging to keep adding menus, even when people have designers and product owners. If the app is big, and they just don't know where to start fitting new stuff. And sometimes even for developer, it's harder to find his way. So if it's harder for us, you can imagine for a user. Rather than I want to add new IoT device, just a quick widget with what you need to do, or it will be a head start. So in some cases you can do the action on itself exactly, but in some case it will just give you maybe just a button and say, okay, click here to start the flow, right? It will send you to the flow. Yes?
I think what you've built is also quite similar to how KBC is doing it in Kate.
Yeah.
For example, you need your insurance papers for your car, you can just
Exactly.
which indeed makes sense. I saw one of your clients is already KBC. So
Yes.
Upselling.
Oh, back then Kate was very bad. I think it is getting better because they have, of course, unlimited budget. I think the challenge of such solution is, I won't say building the widgets and the LLM, it's more about integrating to what they have already. And with a corporate like that, it's very hard. For a smaller company, it could be easier to integrate. Integration to existing process and software is always harder, right? We can build something quick, but integrate to what they have already, that will be a challenge. And I think this will make sense for companies who are ready to experiment, and they feel that they want to try early. So we have already clients like that who want to invest, start early. Maybe it will work, maybe it don't work, but at least they are ready to experiment.
Cool.
Thank you. We have one more question.
Here is a question from non-developer. Thanks, Ivo. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
Coming back to the topic of Cursor and your experience with it, would you say that Cursor might be a fit for a non-developer entrepreneur who is trying to test some quick ideas, but also with supervision of developer. Do you think?
Yeah,
that's-
I think it's good. I think that Cursor will get better and better. That's for sure. And I think for non-developer, it's good to experiment, build proof of concepts, but be aware that it's not a production. Like it's something that you can show to your clients to inspire them, but I wouldn't say that you can release that and start selling that. Not at all, right? If you want to build quickly, inspire, show to clients, to investors, I think it's a good tool. But maybe a developer will use it in a different way, that he will start building since the beginning, but in a way that, okay, you don't need to start from scratch further on. Maybe a no developer, if he gets success, he'll have to start from scratch because it was done quickly. That's my opinion. So for sure, yes, but not for, I've seen this in the past. We did something quick for clients and they want to put it in the market already because they saw 20 screens done in 2 weeks. And I told them since the beginning, be careful, that's not a production app ready. So show it to your investor, but that's it. We're not. If you go further, I'm starting from scratch. But they see the temptation that they say, okay, we have this thing, has 20 screens, it's kind of working. Okay, let's go. Let's start charging. I say, no, I will not maintain that. This is your responsibility. I gave you my opinion that just a proof of concept. So I think it can serve both. Yeah. No problem. Thank you.
We'll have a 10-minute break, some drinks, maybe some colder pizza. And then we'll start in 10 minutes.
Okay. Yes. So welcome everyone to my talk about multi-view embedding. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Free. I've been working with Flutter for apparently as long as Flutter Belgium has existed as well, since 2018. I'm a freelancer and I offer consulting, coaching and development services through my company Skystone Apps. And my current role is being lead developer at Robaus. Now, Robaus is a company that provides a cloud-based enterprise resource planning system for the construction and installation sector. And they mainly have 3 customer-facing apps, which are 2 mobile apps written in Flutter and a web application. Now, the web application is the biggest part of the platform, and generally speaking, the features are developed on web first and then find their way into our apps. But sometimes it just goes the other way around. We develop a certain feature in one of our apps, it gets ported to the other one, and of course our web users will want to use that feature as well. So we start looking into how can we provide that feature to our web users without having to write the feature all over again. And since Flutter offers support for web as well, a Flutter web application is the way to go. But how do we offer it? So there's basically 3 ways to do this. You could simply create a separate app, a separate tab, and then go to a different Flutter web application that has those features in them. And this is by far the simplest way, but obviously there's not a lot of interaction with your original application. This would cause a very disruptive user experience because you leave the app, you don't really know where you're at, and you might not even come back to the original host application. If we do want to integrate it a little bit, we can look at iframes. So those provide somewhat of an integration. But who here likes to use iframes? Oh, a few people. Okay. Well, generally speaking, if you've worked with iframes before, they do come with complex communication. They also are very sandboxed and might cause some security hurdles to overcome. And they can result in a bit of performance overhead since it's loading a whole separate browser context in there as well. So luckily, there's a third way that we can provide our features to our web users. And since like most of you probably read the title of this talk, it's embedding those features. So if we do this right, we get a complete seamless integration with the host platform. And it's just the best experience we can offer. But it does come with some initial setup. And I'm going to try to explain you how we can actually do this. Now, first let me go into the history of embedding Flutter web apps a bit. So when Flutter 2.0 came out with support for web apps, it was only possible to place your Flutter web application inside the body tag of an HTML page. Now, there has been a process of multiple steps to enable this, and they were defined within this document, which I think has an awesome title. It's called Astral Projections for Enabling Out-of-Body Experiences. So just wanted to share that one here. But eventually in Flutter 3.7, with a minor API change in 3.10, we were able to actually use different elements than the body element to render our Flutter apps in. And since one is just a special case of many, since last year, it's also possible to create multiple views for our embedded Flutter web applications. So what actually is a Flutter web application? How does it look like? I've made a simple example here. We have our Belgian Bonanza game where we can vote what our favorite Belgian snack or delight actually is. So I'll just pick a few. Let's say we'll add fries in there. Let's maybe have chocolate. Let's have beer. Some people are having a beer. Well, we'll get to that point. I'm not gonna do waffles. I'm not into waffles today. But who likes fries? Okay, there must be like something like this amount of people. Anybody likes chocolate? A little bit less. Okay. All right. And who likes beer? Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, what we see here, it's a web page that is embedding one Flutter application with multiple views that also access the same memory. So you can see that on every view, the total count is also displayed, while it also has its own state. So how can we build something like this? Let's go into how we set up embedding, but first, let's start by looking at a normal Flutter web app. How does it actually work? When we run the build command, we'll end up with all these files here. This is just an example from the typical counter app. Some of them are already present in the web directory. Others are generated on the spot. So let's initially start looking at the index file. This is what we open in the browser. And most of this here is related to our web page. Only a small part of this is actually our Flutter app. So let's see what's in this bootstrap file. We see a lot of generated code there, but we can mainly split it up into 3 parts. First part is about the Flutter loader. The second part will provide us with a certain build configuration, which will also reference our entry point. This is the main.dart file, or at least its JavaScript equivalent. And last but not least, the loader is executed and the engine is initialized and the app starts running. So this is what happens in the bootstrap of a Flutter web app. So very strictly speaking, we would only need a bootstrap file, our entry point, and that one will probably call some assets as well. So what if we just copy all of those into a complete different web application? We're almost there. We just need to make a few adjustments. So as you can see, we provide a certain element with an identifier. In this case, it's this one right here, or at least this one right here. This is going to be the div that's going to contain our Flutter application. Preferably, we're going to give it some dimensions as well. Other than that, we're just calling the script of our bootstrap file, and that's the only thing that we have to change in our web in our index.html file. We have to make a slight adjustment in the generated bootstrap file, where we actually provide some extra configuration, where we can actually provide it with the specific host element in which it should run. Now, obviously, we don't want to make a manual change every time we run a new Flutter web build, so we can actually customize this bootstrap file as well. So by adding the bootstrap file into our web directory, we can start making changes to it. So we don't need to have this whole generated piece. We can simply use two small placeholders and then take complete control over the configuration for our loader. So there we have it. So that's all we need to do to embed a single view Flutter web application. But I think most of you came for multi-view embedding. So let's see what other steps we need to do. This is going to be quite some code. There's going to be 5 steps that we need to go through. The first one is already done, customizing the bootstrap file. So let's look what else we can change in that bootstrap file. Let's have a look at on entry point loaded callback. This is a very basic implementation. It's basically what the default implementation does as well. It initializes the engine and then runs the app. If we want to have a multi-view application, we just need to provide it with an extra flag, multi-view enabled, and we have to keep a reference to the app object that is returned from this run app. We're going to need this later. So if we then just try to run it, we run into an issue where basically we cannot use run app. And to explain this, we're going to have a look at how widgets binding work in a normal Flutter app. So if we run a normal Flutter web application, the widgets binding will provide us with an implicit Flutter view. This is an area in which our widgets will be rendered. And run app will typically take a widget and put it in there. But since we're working with multi-view application, there isn't going to be any implicit Flutter view, so it's not going to find any view to render it on. Therefore, we have to use run widget. Run widget allows us to actually bind specific widgets to specific Flutter views. If you're going to try this out, I would recommend going to the docs and start playing with the example widget that they provide. It's called multi-view app. It basically listens to the widget binding and will then, for every Flutter view that it finds, it will connect it to the right widget. This will happen through the didChangeMetrics callback, which is called every time you add a view or you remove a view, or even when you change the dimensions of your browser window. And if we use it, this is how our main.dart function will look like. So slightly different, slightly more complex than just run app with your widget, but it's still quite understandable. Good news, that was already step 3. 2 more steps to go. Because if we're going to run this, we're just going to get a blank page. Nothing's going to happen, because we haven't added a view yet. So going back to JavaScript, on the reference of the app object that we had earlier, we can then tell it to add a view for a specific host element. And that way, it's also going to provide a view ID, or return a view ID. And we can use that later if we want to remove that view again. Then it will cleanly dispose the whole widget tree that's underneath there. So there we have it. Instead of one counter, we have multiple counters. But I think in a real use case, you'll probably don't want to have multiple instances of the same thing. And that's where the last step comes in, and that is to provide some initial data. So with the addView function, you can also provide any type of data to start with. In this example, I just give an object that has a color code, and as you can see, it will be used to change the color scheme for each counter or for each view. This can actually be anything, and the way we're gonna get that initial data in our widgets tree could be from anywhere in the context. So in the widget tree. So we're gonna use the context to ask which view am I running on at the moment. Then we can, with that view ID, we can ask what was the initial data passed in for this specific view. And last but not least, we can easily cast this to an extension type. This uses JS interop, which I'm not going to address within the talk. It would be a little bit too much, but it allows for easy access to our properties in Dart. And so this is still a very simple example, just changing a few colors, having different counters. But we can take this a lot further and provide completely different widgets. So in this example, we have one Flutter app that will actually run basically completely different apps on every view. So we have a counter, to-do app, or the Wondrous app that you might have all seen as a demo application. Okay, so let's sum this up. These were the 5 steps that we need to do. So I'm happy that everyone is still still listening. But initially, we need to customize the Bootstrap script. We need to pass in multi-view enabled to the engine. We need to use run widget instead of run app. And then we can start adding multiple views. And preferably, we'll do this with some initial data. So this is all we need to do to have a multi-view embedded app. Now, there is one thing that I didn't really mention here. I assumed in these examples that both our Flutter code and our HTML code are hosted on the same domain at the exact same location. Well, in real life, it's probably going to look a little bit more like this, running on a different path, or maybe on a completely different domain. And this is definitely going to happen when you're developing. So your Flutter app will run on a different port on localhost. Your web application will be somewhere else. Luckily, we can also provide this in our configuration. We just need to add these URLs in 2 different places. So we need to add an entry point base URL so that it knows where it should fetch the main.dart file. And then for our assets, we have to do the same, if we're hosting the assets on the same place at least. These could be complete URLs, but it could also just be a path if it's all running on the same domain. And one thing I really want to mention, because I kind of feel ashamed how many times I ran into this and how much time I lost. But there is an inconsistent casing in the word entry point. And this happened to me more than once. So watch out for this. I submitted a bug for that. Let's hope it's get resolved in a later version, but we'll see. Okay, now I want to go back to the demo application because you know how live demos goes. They just never go perfectly. So I don't know, did anybody see what was wrong in the demo app? Oh, that's good. So let's have a look. Does anybody see it right now? Yeah, it's the double colons that we have there. So let's see if we can fix this, because I won't get to it if I don't do it right now. And we have time anyway, right? So yeah, let's quickly see how this works, because I developed this so long ago. It must have been yesterday or something. So I don't know where those widgets are, so let's go have a look. We use the widget inspector on this. Let's click here. Oh yeah, okay, there it is. Perfect. Okay, there we have our widget tree again. Yeah, let's just change this real quick. Hit save, and there we go. Okay. Looks a lot better, right? And we didn't lose any of our votes. We still know exactly what is the most popular delight at the moment. So what I wanted to show with this is even in embedded application, we can use our debugging tools and still have stateful hot reload, which is the new thing that they just added. Yeah, for web. So now there are a few things that we need to do for this, but don't worry, I've written most of them here. Let's see, there's my demo app. Okay. So hot reload and debugging. This is the fairly complex run command that I used for this. And I have to make one note. This is currently not yet unstable, but the fix is already available on the master channel to use this for embedded applications. So we'll see this very soon. So we're using this experimental flag that you may have not seen with the last version of Flutter to enable hot reload for web. And because we're running on 2 different domains, and our local host 8080, our host application, is fetching our Flutter code from somewhere else, we can provide these web header parameters to add all the necessary course configurations. This will, because everyone who has run into course issues, yeah. So this will help you definitely. And another caveat is that this currently only works when you're targeting Chrome, or at least in debug mode. So if you spin up a Flutter web application in debug mode, there's going to be a Chrome instance that is spawned. You need to use that one specifically. But since we're using an embedded web application, we can easily use the web launch URL and point it to our host application, so we can just still have it in one click. And as I mentioned before, this allows you to use the debugging tools, but also allows you to set breakpoints and everything like that. So this will really speed up development. I'm very happy because I think a few weeks ago, this would have been a whole different process with copying and symlinks to make it work as fast as possible, but this will be enabled soon on the stable channel. Okay, then there's only one topic I want to go into, and that is reducing load times. Because for web applications, we always try to keep the file sizes very low to have a smooth experience, definitely at startup. But if we look into this example that contains actually 3 pretty simple apps, the Wondrous app might be a little bit more complex, but it's mostly very heavy on assets, not on code. This will already result in an entry point file that is over 4 megabytes, which is quite a lot. Luckily, in Dart, we can apply lazy loading on web by using the deferred as keyword on our imports. What this will do is it will implicitly provide a load library function that we have to call first before we want to call anything. And when we call load library, it will then download the code for that specific import. The compiler will be smart enough to split it up into multiple files to make sure that you don't need to download too many files and that they stay as small as possible. I suggest using this with something like a feature builder, or you could use any mechanism behind it actually. Now if we apply those to the example that we have and we run our build again, then you'll see that we end up with all of these additional main.dart files. And just to show you the difference in size, most of them will still have to be loaded in initially, but this is because it's a quite simple application. The moment your features tend to grow, the weight of this will definitely move to the different parts. But as you can see also, they differ a lot in size. This last one, for example, contains all of the localizations for the Wondrous app specifically. The other ones didn't have that many labels or resources, so they remain quite small. Okay, and with that, I want to come to some closing tips and common pitfalls that I noticed along this path. Starting with event propagation. So you may have noticed it, but what actually happened is that the events that happen within the area of our Flutter view still make it into the web application. In this case, I'm taking advantage of that, and I'm letting the Flutter view move up with the hover. So all pointer events, whether it's tabs or hovers or whatever, they're not specifically caught. It remains the responsibility of the host app to deal with that. So it could be used to your advantage, but it could also, it could happen that some unexpected behavior might occur. Another thing about the host elements that I want to point at is that all the children that are initially within the host element will be deleted once the Flutter view starts. As you can see, initially we have like this span and this paragraph, and afterwards we'll have the Flutter view and some other children in there, as well as new properties that were added to our initial host element. So this could come with some weird behaviors as well, so be aware of that. One more thing is about the URL strategy. So by default, Flutter web apps follow the hash URL strategy, which will interact with the browser history and the URL that we see in the browser. This can cause also some weird behavior, definitely if you're running in a single page application that listens to that as well, and they can conflict. Now, mostly for embedding apps or embedding Flutter apps, and definitely for multi-view embedded apps, this is generally not needed. The simplest solution there could be to simply set it to null, and you have to introduce this before you call run widget. If you want to rely on that behavior, you can also implement a different URL strategy and provide it there as well. Two more things. Be aware that our embedded Flutter app uses CanvasKit and not the regular HTML elements. And for tools such as session replay, which can be offered by, I think Sentry has it, Datadog has it in this example, what you see is that first we're in a normal application, and suddenly most of it is gone. And this is the part where our Flutter view is introduced, but it remains a black box to our telemetry. What I could suggest here is to use JS interop to forward those events to your telemetry, or you could just completely implement it within the embedded Flutter application. And to close off, one thing I just want to say is use this with caution. Don't overuse this embedding. I would suggest in general, like, use it for isolated features mostly, and try to provide a clear interface between the JavaScript part and the Flutter part, because the chances are that both the host app as well as the Flutter app will be managed by different people, by different teams, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. And I don't think that the web team will like their Flutter developers as much if we make their life hard. So be kind to your fellow developer. With that, this is all I have. I would ask you to scan this QR code. This will bring you to a small feedback form where at the bottom it will give you all the links to the slides, to the to the demo application, as well as some other interesting documentation. And let's connect as well. Yes.
Yes, I just have a question about the bootstrap managing and like the styling of the HTML elements itself. Because one of the first slides I saw that you are doing inline styling on one of the, like, I think it was a heading or something.
Yeah.
Do you usually depend only on the bootstrap, or for example, if we would like to use it, is this inline styling dependent, or we are like supposed to separate it normally as a separate CSS file, or how do you just manage it?
You can choose whatever you like. Let me try to get to those slides quite fast. It should be here, this one, I think. All right. So I just use this as an example. This is actually all depending on your host application. So whatever they use, if they use, I don't know, like Tailwind, or they use React applications, they use Vue, they organize their styling for these elements differently. It doesn't matter. I just put it in line to make the example clear. What I didn't actually mention, but what could be interesting, is that was step 4 somewhere. Was it this one here? So with add view, we have to add the host element. We can add initial data, but we can also add view constraints. So by default, the Flutter view that is added will take up the whole space of the provided element, of the provided host element. But if you want that to be smaller or constrained in a different way, you can provide constraints there as well. Yes?
So you can pass some values to Dart. Can you do the other way around? Can Dart pass some values to JavaScript?
Yeah, this is all done with JS interop. I didn't go into that on this talk because it tends to grow to a separate subject completely. Yes?
How difficult was it, because you started off with, we have a mobile application.
Yep.
How difficult was it to extract those components and put them in the web?
So it wasn't too hard because of one simple reason, and that is going back to the whole initial, a lot of slides. Okay, this one. I just wanted to show that we actually just, we started with one application, and then before we put it into the other, also mobile application, we extracted a package out of that, and that was most of the work already. Once that is done, there are a few concerns that you have to be aware of, and that's you're running on web and not on mobile anymore. So some things will be different. Depending on your architecture, that could be a walk in the park, or it could be a roller coaster ride. You choose. Yes, Chris.
I played with it also a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I started with a demo app I found on the internet, and that was called CRA Flutter, and that was actually a web React application.
Yeah.
And there they also added JS interop with communication from one to in both directions.
Yes.
And I also I did further on it, and I was able to use WASM also.
Oh yeah.
It's also possible to.
Yeah, I used WASM as well. I didn't include it in here. I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. The only thing that I needed to change after adding WASM was about the JS interop. So if you see, we created this properties object. I don't know how it was exactly anymore, but you couldn't just easily cast a string, because like for JS string to a Dart string, it just works. For a JS string to a WASM string, something was blocking.
I also had some problems with doing a promise in React, and that was converted to an await, but only in JavaScript. And then on WASM, I had to do another magical conversion in Flutter, and after I found that it worked, so you can just do a promise in JavaScript and wait for the result.
All right.
Cool. There's a question from Jens, who's watching the live stream. So indeed, you talk about sharing state between different views, but how is the state actually shared? Is it just the memory, or how does it actually work?
I'll show that in the demo application. It's very simple. We have we added in our widget tree above our multi-view app. So the only thing that we need to make sure is that the first widget that needs to render has to be of the type of view or view collection. And this is managed by our multi-view app. All the rest, we can put any type of provider or any type of other types of widgets above that, as long as the first widget that will be rendered will be a view.
I think the view part is actually adding some stuff like media query and so on to know how big the screen is, because if you forget that, your app will crash and say media query is not found or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a question as well.
Okay.
I run into issues on web where reloading your latest main.dart file sometimes takes a while because of caching issues.
Yeah.
How do you currently solve that? Is that also an issue with multi-view, or is that just similar across?
So I had the issue before, and after enabling hot reload, I didn't run into that issue anymore.
But not in production, maybe. In a hosted.
Oh yeah, okay. So I think in general, I think it's a service worker that takes care of the caching. So you get a default service worker with a Flutter web app. In this example, I just skipped it completely. That helps. But I think I can imagine there's that's where the issue lies. Yeah. Anybody else? All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right. And then who wants to join the raffle? Who didn't scan the QR code can still scan the QR code to join. Huh? Yes, that one or this one? So indeed, or it is this one or the one from the banners. Okay. Okay. So for you did it.
No, thank you.
All right. So again, the spinning wheel is made by William. We never know which shader will be used, so everyone who wants to joined. So we have a pin, Flutter pin, and then a t-shirt dash in a Flutter hat. So it's always the same. Alexander? You can choose.
Oh really? Oh, I thought I was keeping the smallest one.
You can choose. You can choose.
I'll get a t-shirt.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
already have a dash, so. Brilliant.
I've already won 3 times, but now I finally can have a dash. Yes.
And then the pin will be for. Feel free to do some networking. I think we have still some time to do networking. Not sure. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks MobileGeneration for all the food and all the preparation you all did. Thank you.